It's time for your Low Country real estate market update. It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Brian is one of the top 1% real estate agents in Charleston. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. Now, broadcasting from the WTMA studios, here's your host, Brian Beatty.
Good morning, Charleston. Thanks for tuning in to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. I appreciate you joining me this morning as we talk about real estate here in the Low Country over the next hour. I'm your host, Brian Beatty. I've been doing this program for about 5 years here on WTMA, delivering my opinion of the real estate market, delivering expert news and reviews of it, and sharing stories with you along the way of my experiences as somebody that's been selling real estate in Charleston for the past 11 years. I come from a real estate family that's been doing real estate for, probably 50 years. So I draw on that experience and I tell you what's going on in the real estate market to educate you, to help you walk away from this program knowing more about our market, educating you on some of the processes associated with buying, selling, and investing in real estate, and just helping you become a more informed consumer so that when you go and buy, sell, or invest in real estate, you're smarter than the average bear. You win. We talk about winning a lot on this program. You get the deal you want. You get the price, you get the terms. Everything hopefully works out just great for you. Now, if I can help you with that, I am, of course, a real estate agent during the week. I do this show Saturdays at 9 and Sundays at 10. But if I can help you and be your real estate agent, I invite your call. My number, my personal cell phone is 843-345-1273. Again, that's 843-345-1273. And my website is listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. You can go there and learn more about myself and my team, who we are, what we sell, all that fun stuff. Learn about marketing your home for sale. I've got some information there. You can listen to previous versions of the radio show, of course, and contact me through that website, listingsincharleston.com. So let me tell you what I want to talk about over the next hour. We're going to talk first and foremost about the market. We've now got 7 months behind us. We're going to go through some of those statistics, talk about the market in general, and then we're going to break down Charleston, Berkeley, and Dorchester County. I'm going to bring onto the program one of my secret weapons. I don't do this very often, but we're going to have a conversation with Shannon Hawkins. She is my stager. And for anybody that lists their home with me that needs it, I've been blessed recently with having several homeowners that have just done a great job with their house. We've put some time and energy and detail into preparing their house for sale, and we're selling them quickly. We're selling them in 32 days on average, and for 98% of their asking price. We've already done almost 150 transactions this year on my team. But we're going to talk with her about some of the secrets associated with staging properties for sale. What is staging? We're going to talk about that. Do we stage vacant homes? Does it make sense? What if you're currently living in your home? Can we do anything to increase the appeal for a low initial investment? So on and so forth. So we're going to talk with her. We're also going to talk about, and this has come up a lot recently. It comes up a lot this time of year, but selling your house and requesting that after closing, you get to stay in your house for a week or two or a month. It's called occupancy after closing, or it's really what we call a leaseback agreement, where you sell your house and then you rent it from the buyer for a period of time to allow you time to move or to purchase your next home, whatever the case might be. And we're going to talk about the flip side of that, which is buyers moving into a property before closing. Is that a good idea? We're going to talk about that. And then finally, we're going to talk about negotiating some contracts. I've seen this throughout my entire career of 11 years of selling real estate here in Charleston. But even in this market, in a market in which sellers have such a wonderful opportunity to sell their home for top dollar in a very short amount of time on average, I'm still seeing some negotiating flaws. Our buyer agents are picking up on it, where we're getting good deals for buyers in a market that is hard to get a good deal. If you're a buyer, let's just be honest, it's a seller's market. So those are the things we're going to talk about over the course of the next hour. Now, if you do want to reach out to me, you have any questions, comments, you want to speak with me off air, again, my number, 843-345-1273, 345-1273, and the website listingsincharleston.com. So let's talk about the market overall for a little while. I think there are a lot of mixed emotions in this market right now. I'm finding it to be a love or hate relationship with real estate. The people that are loving it, of course, are the people that are either selling their home quickly, they're getting good money for it, It's a relatively easy process. They've already identified or easily identify the home that they're moving into or the area that they're moving to. And the process is pretty darn easy, believe it or not. And I think that when people think about the process of selling a home and buying another, it's this extremely complicated process. And don't get me wrong, it is. And you have to, and I talked about this last weekend, you have to make sure you're protecting yourself contractually and you've got a game plan together because there are a lot of moving parts there. But on the seller side of things, most of the time sellers are pretty darn happy. And of course, if you're a buyer, multiple offers are still very commonplace in many communities within the Tri-County area. So expect that. If you see a home that's in good condition, priced well, marketed well, it's probably going to sell quickly and it's probably going to sell very close to, if not slightly over, what they're asking, depending upon the area and depending upon the situation and what they set as their initial asking price. But it's a love-hate relationship. The people that hate it are the people that have lost out on a few deals. They're buyers that, some buyers, it doesn't matter what kind of market you're in, they just can't help themselves. They just have to offer, 10, 15, 20% below the asking price, regardless of how well or not well a house is priced. They just have to get it out of their system. And sometimes, it just takes one. It takes one property that a buyer really loved and a property that they lose, unfortunately, to realize that, okay, you know what? This is probably not the market for us to be lowballing sellers in, especially if we do the research beforehand and we've determined, hey, you know what? Their price is a fair price. Someone is probably going to pay that price. If you want it, we've got to be close to it. And that's just reality right now. So those are the people that hate it. They either can't find what they're looking for, which is a problem because, of course, we have low inventory, or they're finding what they like. They're just trying to get such a good deal that the market's not in support of that. And they're losing out to other buyers that are more realistic about this market. And so I think one of the questions we have is, how long can this residential real estate market go on like this? I mean, we're about 2 years into a national trend of dropping housing supply and increasing prices. I mean, it kind of depends on where you're living within the country, but across the board, for the most part, it's a seller's market. Inventory is an issue. And as I mentioned, multiple offers are still a thing. Our economy is doing well. Our unemployment, I think, is at 4.4% as of last month. Wage growth is not necessarily steadily rising, but it's improving. Our economy overall is doing better. We're kind of limping along. I mean, absent, of course, the stock market, which is at basically an all-time high. But there are a lot of people out there. In fact, there are all these studies right now looking at billionaires and where they're placing their assets. And a lot of them are putting them into real estate right now, real estate and cash in some instances. They feel as though the market for stocks and bonds and all that is just overpriced. Now, of course, there are plenty of people that say the stock market's going to continue to go up. And if you're going to get in, you might as well get in because stocks, for the most part, are a long-term play, as is real estate. But overall, the market, the economy's doing well. Sales activity just continues to churn along despite the shortage of inventory, the shortage of new construction. And, even the lower price ranges now are starting to see the effects of the supply and demand gap. I mean, first-time home buyers are just having trouble wrapping their head around paying so much money for their first home. In fact, there was this, a little bit off topic, but I always look online for inspiration when I'm doing this program because there are things that I see that I want to comment on or some information that I think is worth sharing or information that I just don't agree with that I want to talk about. And they talked about all the millennials right now spending, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars a year on bachelor and bachelorette parties between the travel, the cost of, lodging, the cost associated with the parties. I mean, you look at the people that are all getting married right now, they're bachelor and bachelorette parties and they're doing it up. They're spending thousands and thousands of dollars. And so this report was saying, look, you want to know why first-time home buyers aren't buying more real estate is because they're spending their money on bachelor and bachelorette parties rather than saving it for the down payment on their house. I just thought that was kind of funny. But let's talk, a little bit more about just some stats here. Let's look at year-to-date stats versus the same amount of time last year. If we look at new listings, properties that have hit the market, we're up about 5%. We've put at the end of July almost 15,500 new properties on the market. We've put a little over 12,000 properties under contract. That's up 7.5% from last year. And we have closed 11,000 properties. That's up 6% from last year. The average days on market in the Tri-County area is 57 days. That's down from 61 last year. The median sales price right now across the board, Tri-County area, is $250,000. That's up 4.6% from the same amount of time in 2016. We're getting 96.5% of our asking price. That remains unchanged. Housing affordability is at 113. So we're down a little bit from last year, meaning affordability isn't as attractive as it has been in the past. Of course, prices are rising, inventory is lowering. It's going to continue to push those prices upward as we deal with that supply and demand. Inventory of homes. This is, I always go back to this. Right at the end of July, we had 5,304 homes available for sale. That's down 16% from July of last year. We had 6,323 homes available for sale. And then we look at months supply of inventory. So months supply of inventory is you take everything available, you divide it by the number of homes that are selling on average on a monthly basis. And whatever that number is the amount of time it would take to sell off everything in our inventory. And right now we're sitting at 3.4 months. That's down 23% from last year. So, again, in looking at the inventory, looking at some of the historical figures, I mean, the height of our inventory was middle of 2007. We had about 12,000 homes available for sale. We're sitting at less than half that. We're sitting at about 5,300 at the end of July. Massive drop. But again, if we look at months supply of inventory, we're taking into account the rate by which homes are selling. The highest month's supply of inventory we've had over the past decade or so was, I think, in the spring or summer of 2009. And we had about 18 months worth of supply, meaning it was very much so a buyer's market. There was plenty of choice out there. Properties weren't selling quickly. If you're not going to take my offer, fine, I'll go to the next guy. That was the mentality among buyers. Now we're at 3.4. It's amazing. So, just as it relates to housing in general, I think you're seeing this trend starting to develop as people try and wrap their head around inventory. And what a lot of news outlets I've noticed are focusing on is the drop, so to speak, in the total number of sales, across the nation. But what they have to look at, of course, is one of the reasons why we're not able to sell as many homes is because we don't have as many homes to sell. So it's really more of a supply issue than it is a demand issue. Don't necessarily be fooled by, sales decreased 3% in the month of, whatever. Sales, in my opinion, right now are a function of supply. Yes, of course, demand takes some precedent there, but supply. There's just not a lot of homes available for sale. If you look at, let me just read through Charleston County, Berkeley County, and Dorchester County stats, and then I'm going to take a break, and we're going to have Shannon Hawkins come in. She's going to talk about staging. We're going to talk about if you're selling your house, what are some things you can do to improve the overall appeal of it so that you can sell it for more money, sell it in a faster amount of time. Be one of those success stories. Don't be one of those people that hates on the market because you've had your home on the market for 6 months and it hasn't sold. Let's do some things to try and stir up some activity, increase the appeal either online and, of course, when people walk through the home. There are plenty of things we can do, and I'm excited to talk to her about that. But let's look at Charleston County really quickly. I'm just going to read off the single-family detached, the single-family homes stats. New listings are up 4%. Closings are up 2.5%. The median sales price in Charleston County is $361,868. That's up almost 8% from last year. Last year, we were at $336,000. We're at $361,000 now. The average days of market is 60 days. We've got 2,244 homes available for sale. Inventory's down 14% in Charleston County for single-family homes. If I look at Berkeley County, new listings are up 11%. Closings are up almost 6%. The median sales price is up 5%. We're at $230,000 in Berkeley County as opposed to $218,000 this time last year. Properties are selling in 44 days for almost 98% of their asking price, and we have 933 properties available as of the end of July in Berkeley County. Last year, we had a little over 1,000, so that's down 8%. Dorchester County is where we see some interesting stats here. New listings are up 2%. Closings are up 5%. The median sales price is up 7%. We're at $225 as the median sales price in Dorchester County. It was $210 last year. Properties are selling for 97.5% of asking price in 46 days. And right now we have 688 homes available for sale. That's down 21% from 2016, where we had 875 properties available. So we're down 21% in Dorchester County. So those are the stats overall. When I come back, I'm going to have Shannon Hawkins on the line. We're going to talk about staging. We're going to debunk some myth as it relates to staging your property, decluttering it, preparing it for sale. Does it actually work? We're going to find out when we return. So stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. And remember, if you want to reach out to me and talk about real estate, hire me as your agent, give me a call, 843-345-1273. Or go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com.
Have a real estate question? Ask Brian Beatty. Send him an email, lowcountryhomesales@gmail.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show is on 1250 WTMA. You're listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
Welcome back, Charleston, to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. Thanks for joining me as we continue our discussion about real estate here in the Low Country. We just talked about the market. We gave you a broad overview of the market. We also talked about Charleston, Berkeley, and Dorchester County in terms of what you can expect if you're going to buy and what you're going to expect if you're going to sell. And so what I'd like to do now is, I'm very excited about this segment. I'm going to bring on to the program one of my secret weapons. And I don't do this very often. I don't have people on my team per se come onto this show, but I've brought on Shannon Hawkins with Refresh Your Nest. She is my stager. And for anybody that sells their house with me, that needs it, that has a need for it, I pay for 2 hours worth of an initial staging consultation with Shannon. And so she's here to talk more about what that entails, as well as talk a little bit more about staging properties to sell here in Charleston. Shannon, are you with us?
Yes, Brian, I'm here. Hello, how are you?
I'm doing well, and you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. All right, so I have been guilty at times of not spending enough time having the people on my program tell me and the listeners more about themselves and how to reach you. So I want to start with that first. Tell us a little bit more about who you are and what your company does, and then please give everybody your contact information. Then I've got some questions I want to ask you, okay?
Okay. Again, I'm Shannon Hawkins with Refresh Your Nest. My husband, Jonathan, and I are business partners as well as best friends. We thoroughly enjoy running Refresh Your Nest together. Although my love for design, comes out in the stagings and in the interior redesigns that we do, he has a love for landscaping, and so he is the curb appeal specialist for Refresh Your Nest. We have two sons, ages 17 and 9, who also play a huge part in our success. After 13 wonderful years of serving in the medical field, I knew that I was ready for a career change. I decided to tap into my lifelong love for design, but I still had to feel a need to help people. And from there, I built Refresh Your Nest into one of the most successful staging and interior redesign companies in South Carolina. We offer a wide variety of services that not only benefit the seller, but also the buyer. We have a great website that you can visit at www.refreshsc.com. You can also email me at any time, Shannon@refreshsc.com, and our number is 843-695-7876.
Awesome. So I wanted to, bring you on the program and just talk with you for a little while. As I mentioned in my last segment, every once in a while I'll stumble across something online that I just have to chuckle at a little bit, and it kind of fuels the fire for me to talk about it more on this program, and I talked with you about this. There, something was on Zillow, and I'm not picking on Zillow, but they had this blog post about, and the title was something like, sellers who painted their bathrooms blue sold their home for $5,440 more than expected. And then it was this article that kind of goes into, justifying, hey, paint your bathrooms blue and somehow you'll sell your home for $5,000 more. I mean, if I walked into somebody's house and said, hey, all you got to do is paint these bathrooms blue and there's an extra $5,000 in your pocket, they'd think I was crazy.
Right.
But what I want to talk about first and foremost is just what that 2-hour consultation looks like. So if somebody's living in their house and they bring you over, that's at my cost. That's part of something I offer as a marketing service to my sellers. What is it that you guys do during that 2-hour period?
So during that time, and before the consultation, I try to gather as much information as I can. Square footage, I look at pictures of the house if I can find them, just so I have a better idea of what I'm walking into. But once I get to the home, I go through the entire inside of the property as well as the outside. I go back home and I compile what I call my honey-do list. And it is a very detailed list of things that the seller, in my professional opinion, things that they need to do to show their home at its absolute best. That can be, removing furniture, adding more updated pieces if their furniture is torn or worn. Again, I remind buyers multiple times through that consultation that it absolutely has nothing to do with their things. It has everything to do with that at that point, once I'm brought in, that we're all working for a buyer. Obviously, we don't know who that buyer is, but that's who we're trying to impress. And with that being said, once that honey-do list is complete, I send that to the seller, and they can print that off. And if they utilize that honey-do list, and I mean every point I've hit on, from painting baseboards, maybe replacing some flooring that is very outdated or torn, fixing banisters on stairways. I'm just trying to think of some other examples. Taking all the personal pictures out of the house, patching and painting walls, painting the whole house completely, down to adding a new welcome mat. If they utilize that list, our staged homes are averaging 3 to 8 days on the market, which is huge, because in Charleston, the average is 26 days. And so with that being said, once they utilize that list and that service, they're set for success as soon as their house hits the market.
Excellent. Let me ask you another question. What are some common things that you see kind of on a recurring basis that you would consider to be a big no-no when selling your house, and how do you address those things?
I think the biggest thing for me and the biggest struggle that I have with sellers is personal items, personal pictures, leaving your toothbrush out for a showing. When a buyer walks in your property, they need to be able to visualize themselves there. And although your family pictures are beautiful and your grandkids are beautiful and your kids, wedding pictures are gorgeous, a buyer doesn't want to see those things because they can't see past that to visualize themselves in that space. So if I had to pick one, I would say that it's, that people don't think enough about depersonalizing their homes. I think a lot of sellers are scared to make their houses look quote-unquote bare, because then that's not going to be appealing to a buyer, when that is really what a buyer wants to see.
Yeah, and I'll kind of add to that, just as somebody that's probably walked through, well over 10,000 homes in my career. People are used to living in their house a certain way, whatever that way appeals to them and their lifestyle the
Yes.
most. And I think one of the challenges with sellers is kind of rebranding the property in a way to help it look as appealing as possible to the widest variety of buyers possible. And sometimes that means, all right, look, there was a beautiful home that I had that I sold in West Ashley. Very, very nice home. And this guy was a Game of Thrones fanatic. And he was like, look, man, you can't reach me on Sunday nights. Don't even try. I don't care if we got a full price cash offer. I'm locked in watching Game of Thrones. And so he had his family room, a beautiful family room, positioned with like the couch and his little nightstand, or not night. Well, yeah, it was a nightstand actually, right next to his leather recliner. And that was the only thing in that room. It was perfect for him, but obviously not the highest and best use of that room. So I think that's part of the struggle too, is helping people understand that we're not here to make this necessarily comfortable for you. We're here to get the home sold.
Well, and I agree with that. And again, that's why I try to repeat multiple times during that consultation that it's not personal. They don't need to take it personal. It has everything to do with appealing to a buyer and getting that seller top dollar in the shortest amount of time. That is always my goal, whether it's a $90,000 condo or a $3 million house on Sullivan's Island. My goal is always the same, top dollar in the shortest amount of time. And once you get a seller on board with that, they're fine. I've really not had anybody not agree with that, once the process has started.
Right, and so that kind of leads me to another question. Let's talk about staging vacant houses. Can you explain to us the process and the cost associated with staging a vacant home and why you feel that's so important in maybe like a minute or less?
Sure. So, staging a vacant home. I love staging vacant homes for the simple fact that 75% of the general population cannot visualize how a room is to be set up, how it would function the best. And so I absolutely love walking into a blank slate and just making that room pop. The cost varies because every house is so different. So, a quote-unquote normal staging would be the core of the home, the living room, the kitchen, the dining room, the master bedroom, and all bathrooms. If I see a need for an office, I always throw that in just because, again, it's about customer service, top dollar in the shortest amount of time. We offer 30-day staging contracts, which most staging companies do not. But
which I love.
Because our vacant home stagings average about 11 days on the market, we don't see the need to take more money from a seller out of pocket. So we love offering the 30-day staging contracts with the option of an extension if that's needed. So again, just depending on the need of the home, our prices vary, but our 30-day stagings typically start around $1,850, and that's for the core of the home.
Right. Excellent. One more question I want to ask you, but before I let you go, in general, what are some relatively inexpensive things that people can do to increase their home's appeal to buyers?
So I think the biggest thing that sellers do to try to appeal to buyers without being very educated on it is painting. And so when I have sellers call me even before consultation and they say, we're going to go ahead and paint before you come, if I've not seen the home, it's hard for me to give them a suggestion. So I always ask that they send me pictures or to visit a model home. If you visit a model home, obviously it's going to be the newest and the greatest of the colors and things like that. So I think painting is probably number one, especially if they've lived in their home for more than 3 to 5 years. Another very inexpensive thing that sellers can do is updating the towels in their bathrooms. Adding white towels to a bathroom just really brightens that space up. Decluttering. Again, we'll go back to the items being in the house that are too personal. Removing personal pictures. If you've got 50 throws laying in a corner, just really decluttering your space and trying to make the most of the space. In kitchens, it would be pulling up rugs. I know that sounds funny, but pulling up rugs makes a kitchen look bigger. Buyers want to see the space for what it is. And then adding new bedding. New bedding in a bedroom just makes it feel very refreshed and clean, and people appreciate that you've done that before you've, put your house on the market. They appreciate that those extra steps have been taken to show the home at its best.
Awesome. Well, Shannon, I really appreciate you being on and taking some time to talk with us a little bit about staging and your services. And as I mentioned, Shannon and I work together. Shannon can be reached at 843-695-7876 or at refreshsc.com. Shannon, thank you so much.
Thank you, Brian. Have a great weekend.
All right, you too.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, well, when we come back, we're going to talk more about real estate here in the Charleston area. We're going to talk about the process of either selling your property and staying in it, which is called a leaseback agreement, or we're going to talk about moving into a property before you buy it. Is that a good idea or not? All that and more as the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. And remember, if you want to reach out to me, you're thinking about buying or selling a home, you have a home that you'd like to sell and you think you might benefit from staging, as I mentioned, I cover that initial 2-hour consultation, no cost to you, to get a list of everything that we could do possibly to help you sell your home for top dollar. So reach out to me if you'd like, 843-345-1273, 345-1273, or go to listingsincharleston.com. We'll be right back.
Find Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues next on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
The Big Talker, WTMA.
Now, the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues on Charleston's Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, Charleston, to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. What I want to talk about now is this process of deciding to sell your home without knowing exactly where you're going. And so let me kind of explain what I mean by this. We're going to take a few minutes and talk about this because this is a real issue people have right now. And unless you're either okay with renting a place for a while after you've sold your home, or you have someone you can just bunk up with for a few weeks or a month or two, the idea of selling your house without knowing where you're going, but you of course have to buy something else, is a very scary notion, right? I mean, to them, they have an interest in selling their house, but the only way they're going to sell is if they can find something worthy of buying. I mean, I know that situation very well because that's how I came to own my current house. We were not in the market to purchase something, but something perfect came along. And so we decided to buy it, and then we sold our home. But most people have kind of the opposite, which is, I want to buy my home. My home no longer works for me. I want to sell my house, but I'm scared to death to put my home on the market without yet identifying the home that I'm going to purchase. So let's just talk about that for a little while. How do people kind of get over that fear of potentially being homeless? Well, I've never made anybody homeless in the entire time that I've been selling real estate, 1,000 transactions, 11 years. But selling their home and having nowhere to go is a very frightening thing. So the first thing I want to say is, first and foremost, start by interviewing and hire a real estate agent that can help you come up with a game plan. Somebody that has been through this process before. It doesn't cost you anything to have us help you strategize. Let us earn our commission by demonstrating our value. I mean, so many people jump right into getting into looking at random properties, registering on a bunch of websites for home valuation reports, looking at homes available for sale. The next thing they do is, they start getting bombarded by phone calls and emails and text messages from a bunch of real estate agents, and or that they've met at an open house or something like that. And for them, that kind of seems, good enough. So they just kind of go with the first person that sounds like they know what they're talking about. I mean, they may or may not be the best choice for you as an agent, but they're in the right place at the right time and, stand a great shot at earning your business simply by being present, the right place at the right time. Because after all, we're a society of, convenience. We value convenience so much so that we're willing to sacrifice quality at times because it's just easier. I mean, it's kind of like me saying to my wife, hey, honey, what do you want to do for dinner? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know either. All right, well, I'll just pick up some Chick-fil-A. It's easy. Even though we know we're trying to lose weight and, take care of ourselves, it's just easy. I mean, so if you want to be lazy and, grab fast food one night for dinner, that's one thing. Go for it. We do it all the time. Unfortunately, we got a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. But if you're going to sell your house and buy another, don't be lazy when it comes to choosing the right real estate agent to help you through this process. The other thing that I want to mention is, understand that it is extremely hard for buyers in this market to get offers accepted without their home even being on the market for sale. I mean, think about it from the seller's perspective. They might say to themselves, hold on, I just spent 5 months on the market and I'm finally getting an offer from somebody, but they haven't even started the process yet. Most of the time, buyers will list and then look at a home for purchase. They have made the decision that they are going to sell and they are going to start looking at properties for sale. That happens at the same time more often than not. You can go the route of identifying a property and saying, I want to purchase this home, but I need to sell mine first. So I'm going to go home and I'm going to write an offer and I'm going to submit it to the seller. And then if they accept it, boom, I'll put my home on the market. That at times can be very scary to a seller, especially the sellers that have been on the market for a while. On one hand, they're kind of desperate to sell their home, so they might entertain it. But on the other hand, they've been on the market for months. They feel like they're probably doing a pretty good job. And now they're going to be susceptible to you trying to figure out the market to find your buyer. But you have to understand your options. Think about this. First of all, set the right expectation. I set the right expectation, I should say, rather, about the market and about the process before it even begins. Price, condition, marketing. We just talked with a stager, talking about what we need to do to guarantee as best we can that we're going to sell it quickly and for top dollar. So let's first and foremost talk about expectations within the marketplace. And then sellers, you have to be honest with your agent about what you're going to expect and demand from the process, from your agent, and what you need in terms of a net in order to sell your home. You have to have a very upfront conversation with your agent about, if we can't accomplish this, it doesn't make sense to try this process right now. And a good agent should be able to say, yes, we can realistically accomplish this, or no, I don't want to put you through that process because I don't think your requirements or expectations are consistent with what the market will bear right now. Okay? You have to set standards and discuss accountability. Hey, if we're gonna do this, I need you to be all in, real estate agent. I need you to have my back. And then you have to trust that your agent has your best interests in mind and rely on their judgment. I mean, if something doesn't feel right, have an upfront discussion with them about your concerns. If you feel like they don't have your best interests in mind, then they're just not the right agent for you. You need to continue to interview and make sure that they're going to take care of you in this process, because this is a stressful process. So here's what your options are, essentially, when you sell this property or when you put this property on the market. First of all, you do not have to accept an offer. I mean, technically speaking, if someone makes you a full price cash offer with no contingencies and they give you everything you want, I mean, does it really make sense to reject it in the first place? Probably not. Second thing you can do is an extended closing. You can say, hey, give me, 90 days to close on this property, which gives me enough time while we're under contract to identify my new property. That would be option 2. Option 3 would be the sale with the leaseback. Okay, we'll close on the property, and once we have sold my house, I then have the actual cash in hand to go buy something else. And while I'm looking for that property to purchase, or while I'm waiting to close on the property I've already identified, I'm going to rent the property back per day, per week, per month at fair market rate. That way the buyer, if they have the ability to wait a little while and not move in immediately, they get a little extra dough. Plus it helps you because you don't have to deal with moving into an intermediary house before you move into the home that you purchase. The other would be a sale contingent upon identifying a replacement property with a deadline. So let's say you put your home on the market, someone makes you a great offer, and you say, I need 10 business days to identify a replacement property. And if I can't identify a replacement property, then I want the ability to cancel this agreement. I'll refund your earnest money. And until I find my replacement property, we'll wait to do the inspection so that the buyer doesn't incur any fees. That's a great way of doing it, so long as the buyer will agree to that. And then, put a home under contract and lease it while you're waiting for your home to sell. That to me is the riskiest of the options is, let's say, all right, I'm going to put my home on the market. We're going to look for a home. I find the home that I want, and I'm going to move in and rent that home while my home is on the market getting ready to sell or receive an offer or wait until closing. And then once the closing's done, I'm already in my new home. We close on both properties at the same time and everything works out. It's risky, but it works. It can work if all the, stars align. Basically, I don't want to make it sound that complicated because it's really not that complicated. But there are plenty of options here. So if you're a seller and or buyer, you're thinking about selling your house, you know that your home doesn't work for you, and you now need to go and identify a property. Let's have a conversation about that. Or if you've identified a property you want to purchase and you need to sell your home, obviously it makes sense to sell your home quickly and for the most money possible. And I'd love to help you with either of those things and at least walk through this process with you. So feel free to give me a call so we can have that discussion. Again, it doesn't cost you anything, but let's strategize a little bit. Let's talk about your goals and let's see what works. My number is 843-345-1273. Again, that's 843-345-1273. Or go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. We'll be back for the last few minutes here in just a moment. Stick with us.
Stay tuned for more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
WTMA.
Expert news and views on the Lowcountry real estate scene. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back to the last few minutes of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. I want to talk for just a minute about something that's very important to me, and I've only got a few minutes left, unfortunately, so I can't give this more time than is allowed. I might talk about this next weekend, but I want to tell you something that we as real estate agents know, unfortunately, all too well, and it's a saying that we have in our industry. And the saying is this: buyers are liars and sellers are too. This means, to me, that if you're looking to sell a house, let me use some examples here. If you're looking to sell a house and the buyer tells you something, you should have it verified by your real estate agent. In other words, if a buyer, let's say that I'm the listing agent, I'm representing a seller, and an agent calls me and they say, hey, I'm submitting an offer. The offer comes in, everything looks great, but there's no pre-approval letter. They're saying they're getting a mortgage, they're putting 20% down, but I don't see a pre-approval letter. I'm going to say to the seller, hey, this all looks great, but we have to get that pre-approval letter from a reputable lending institution to ensure that these buyers are who they say they are and can afford what they say they can afford. So it's not just the proof of the pre-approval letter. I want them to talk with the lender, run the credit, run the income, run the debt. Does it work on paper theoretically before they really dig into the financials of that buyer? So it's not just the pre-approval letter. I, as a real estate agent, as per the contract, legally have the ability to call that mortgage broker and ask for information about that buyer to determine whether or not they are financially capable to purchase the home. And that should be being done by the listing agent when representing sellers selling a home, even in this market, because we see far too often properties coming off the market because the financing fell through. Buyers, same thing. If you walk through a house and everything looks good and the seller says, oh, yeah, not a problem with this house, it's just as good as the day it was built 35 years ago. Verify it. Get a home inspection. I've heard of people waiving their home inspections recently, and it's biting them in the butt, costing them thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in repairs they didn't know they had to make. And there goes their little nest egg for repairs down the road, or maybe for the cosmetic updates they wanted to make. So buyers, verify what the sellers are telling you. Sellers, verify what the buyers are telling you. I mean, you just have to cross your T's and you have to dot your I's. So my advice is, when I'm buying a property from a seller, I basically assume that the majority of what they're telling me it's really non-applicable because I'm going to verify it for myself. I mean, I had a transaction the other day where the new buyer did the inspection and found that there was a ton of fire damage in the attic. And it looked recent. Of course, the seller knew about that. They didn't disclose it. That's a problem. So you have to verify the information. The other thing that I want to mention to you is that In our lifetimes, we only transact a few times a year. And I've seen more and more, which is, I'm disappointed in it, but I'm seeing more and more that the people, the buyers and the sellers, they don't really have any allegiance to one another. At times, people are going to lie and they're going to say what they're going to need to say to get the deal done so that they can accomplish their goal of moving, selling, or buying. So just a few minutes here in a cautionary tale to make sure that you understand you have to verify the information people are telling you. And that goes for real estate agents too. So that's all the time I have. Thank you so much for joining me here this morning. Feel free to listen to the show again Sunday at 10 on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA, or reach out to me, 843-345-1273. That's 345-1273. Or go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com.